When a consumer reaches checkout, they're no longer browsing, they're buying. It's a moment of peak intent, attention, and engagement. That's where Rokt comes in. Rokt helps brands reach customers at the moment that matters most, delivering relevant offers and content that feel like a natural part of the transaction experience, not an interruption. Learn more at rokt.com. Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, June 24th. Welcome to eMarketer's weekly retail show, Reimagining Retail, where we talk about how retail collides with every part of our lives. I'm Arielle Feger, maybe a familiar voice to some of you, and today I'm guest hosting for Susie David Canyon, who I hope is having an amazing time on her vacation. On today's episode, we're back with our Unofficial Monthly Retailer Awards. Yes, it's the UMRAs. Let's see who stood out this month. Joining me today, we have Paola Flores-Marquez.
You can call me Pao. It's okay.
Thanks. I'll take it.
No, excellent work. Thank you. Thank you.
We also have Emmy Liederman.
Hello.
Hi. And Rachel Wolff.
Hey, guys.
Awesome. All right. As a reminder, here's how this works. Each month, we're handing out awards to the retailers we think really nailed it in a few key areas. We have 3 categories: most impactful campaign, best IRL or in real life initiative, and the greatest under the radar move. Paola, Emmy, and Rachel each brought a nominee for June, and I'm going to pick the winner based on how convincing their case is. So let's get started. We're going to start with most impactful campaign, the marketing idea that broke through the noise, resonant, memorable, and performance driving. And the nominations are, Rachel, let's start with you.
All right, I'm right in the hot seat. Okay, so my nominee is L'Oreal Paris, sponsoring / collaborating on the Legally Blonde prequel, Elle. And this is sort of taking a track that we're seeing a lot of brand partnerships these days, which is that L'Oreal products are kind of embedded into the narrative of the TV show. And there's also going to be, Elle-themed ad spots that are, that feature the main character. There's also going to be an Elle Woods immersive experience that L'Oreal features very strongly in. And I think it's an interesting way. And again, we're seeing a lot of brands do this, but I think it's kind of the next iteration of this blending of commerce and entertainment where they take an even center stage within content itself.
Yeah, I thought this made a lot of sense. I thought it was interesting, especially because I believe the prequel is going to take place in the 90s, and L'Oreal feels like a very 90s type of brand to me, which may or may not be a good thing. My question is, do you think this is going to have the same kind of impact as the Mean Girls musical movie and Elf Cosmetics? I feel like a lot of people were like, oh, this feels like a long commercial for Elf. Do you feel like they can blend it organically?
I think, with all of these, it's kind of a tricky line. I think in some ways it may work because so much of Legally Blonde and Elle does really lean into that whole idea of, female empowerment and a certain type of aesthetic that maybe could work to L'Oreal's benefit. But, again, you have to be careful with these types of partnerships, and it remains to be seen. I haven't seen if anybody wants to give me a preview. But, it could really go either way.
Yeah. I also really thought, the interesting part about, just like the Elle Woods prequel is that, it's an unknown. So I feel like taking a chance with this show that hasn't premiered yet, that we have an actress who we don't know yet, is, a really good chance to grow with the programming and the content as it goes. Emmy, what's your nomination?
So my nomination is the post-Knicks win spot from Nike. It was just a short social video. That was a pretty simple concept. It was just a guy in a Brunson Knicks jersey running through New York. He ends up in front of MSG where there's a bunch of Knicks fans celebrating. And the caption said, "Sleep well, New York." And then at the end it said, "Never slept, always dreamed." And I think it was just very aligned with the way that Nike does its marketing. It's always been about being simplistic and straight to the point, and I feel like it's a good case study for marketers who want to create a brand that way, that those are solid guidelines. And it was just the timing of it, I think, was part of the artistry, the fact that they were able to make it beforehand and took a chance and were like, this is not going to hit if they don't actually win. And it just, encompassed a feeling that I think didn't really need to be put in many words.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's something about the agility of being able to hop on a trend. You have to do it immediately, or else it really makes absolutely no sense. And Nike is obviously pretty well set up to have the resources to do that. And my question is, and this may be a silly question, will this appeal to people outside of New York? I mean, the Knicks winning obviously was national news, but is it too localized for people to resonate with outside of New York? What do you guys think?
I actually think it doesn't really matter, right? Like, it could be a template that Nike uses for other sporting events going forward, the idea of how do you build these long-term connections? Because I feel like on the basis of that ad, a lot of New Yorkers or people who are fans of the Knicks will feel more positively about Nike. So it's just about building that overall affinity towards the brand.
And I think everybody loves an underdog story. And I know
Yes.
New York is not an underdog in many ways, but it definitely was for the Knicks. And so I think it taps into that too, and it breeds that connection as well.
And I think the other notable thing is that there are no stars in the ad, right? Which is typical of Nike marketing. So the fact that it really did feel like the fan experience embodied in the ad, I think just really made it really effective.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I also think that New York is very aspirational, and a lot of the classic New York songs, which this was set to New York State of Mind, could be seen as overplayed for people that live in New York, but then people outside of New York are like, oh my God, I love that sentiment. Like, it would be great to live there one day. I don't know if that's too New York centric, but I do feel like I'm like, everyone who doesn't live here wants to live here. A New Yorker is going to appreciate it for different reasons than someone who doesn't live in New York, but for both cases, it's a strong ad.
Awesome. Moving on, Pao, what is your pick?
So my pick is Café Bustelo, which released a series of World Cup temporary tattoos in 1 million limited edition coffee cans. And so if you've never seen, if you've never seen Café Bustelo is a symbol in Latin America, right? It is regionally popular. It is cultural. It's a cultural icon. And so for them to sort of blend the excitement of the World Cup and this really low effort way of getting involved is really important. And so the temporary tattoos mimic iconography from 4 countries, Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, and Argentina. And they're face tattoos that kind of look like the way that indigenous tattoos, or Aztec tattoos, I guess pop culture portrayals of Aztec tattoos. I should make that clear. They're not real and not historically accurate. But it kind of inspires that sort of it taps into that cultural resonance.
Yeah, I'm glad you explained a little bit, because I did write down my first question was, why face tattoos? And maybe that is showing a little bit of my cultural ignorance, but I did think it was interesting. Face tattoos obviously are immediately there. They're very visually, you're going to see them. And so I thought it was a very interesting statement. I love this. I think it seems, I was, reading an article, and it seems like this is one of many campaigns that they've done tying to, Latino culture and really celebrating their heritage, which I think was really makes it stand out, because it's not just a one and done play. This is, continually through their roots.
And it's good advertising. It says Café Bustelo on the
And it also, I think, taps into fan traditions, right? Of people painting their faces, and you're making it a very quick way of one and done. Yeah, I think it was really clever and really easy and really low effort and very accessible for people, especially if you waited too long to get a jersey.
Yeah, it seems like it's a really great way to be part of the celebration without having to necessarily spend a ton of money on a jersey or even a ton of money on going to the game. You can celebrate just with the face tattoos and a nice cup of coffee at home. Now it's down to me. It's my turn to figure out who had the most impactful campaign. And I think for this month, I'm going to choose the Nike campaign post. I completely agree. I think it was I watched it and I felt something, and maybe it is partly because of being in New York and having that energy around me, but I thought it was just a smart when, again, there was no celebrities. It really just celebrated the moment. So, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like it felt like it really didn't have that much to do with basketball, but also had everything to do with basketball, which I think was what I appreciated about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Versatile.
All right, moving on to second award, Best IRL Initiative. The in real life move that got people off their screens and into stores, creating an experience worth checking out. And the nominations are, Emmy, you go first.
Okay, so suddenly I am just a diehard Knicks fan as of 3 weeks ago. So I have 2 Knicks nominations. This one is a pop-up for Mitchell & Ness, which is a sportswear brand within Paragon Sports in New York. They had a pop-up where people could get like specialized Big Apple and NBA patches on their shirts. And I just think that this is a good response to how much people, I think, were like scrambling in these past few weeks to get Knicks apparel and also get something that didn't feel super generic that you could like buy in Times Square that just like looked like, you know, someone just screen printed it like 2 minutes before. So I think it just responded to that desire for like people acquiring Knicks attire and going to watch parties and all that stuff, but was like, let me give them something a little bit extra that's like more personalized, and just seemed like super low lift. Like putting a patch on a jersey doesn't sound expensive at all. And yeah, I just thought it was very simple but effective.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think there was so many opportunities around the Knicks games to have pop-ups, experiences, etc. And I just think any chance that you can give to fans to have something more personalized, something more custom it's a pretty smart move. And they said, they had some throwback jerseys, and so people love that nostalgia. And I think it's just a pretty smart move. All right, Pao, what about you?
Okay, so my second one is also about the World Cup. So
There's
a theme here.
Listen, it is a very nice summer in New York. Mine is Stella Artois' Work from the Bar campaign. And so I don't know if anybody has noticed, but a lot of soccer games are happening during work hours. So we can't all just go, except Stella Artois wants you to go. They reallocated about $100,000 of their marketing budget to reimburse bar tabs for anyone who signs up on their website and then goes and watches the game. And they've created a World work-friendly bar hub in New York. And so it's super clever because it's like solving a real consumer problem, which is that I have to work, but I also want to watch this game. So it's turning that sponsorship into a very useful service, I would say.
Yeah, I love when brands solve problems, and I love it even more when they solve it with bars. And then
They were also very clear to emphasize that they have non-alcoholic options,
which is great. We really support that. Obviously, if you're at work, you don't want to be imbibing. But I think this is just a really fun way to have a good time with fans during the World Cup. Which I mean, everyone knows there's going to be lots of people packed at the bars to watch.
What
it.
do those pop-ups look like? Do they have just like desks?
I think it's a regular bar.
Because you said that they have like pop-ups where people can work.
It's one hub.
Okay.
Yeah. Any participating bar. So it should be any bar that is in their network. I think it looks like a regular bar.
Okay. Yeah, I was picturing like them creating a WeWork situation.
Like an open desk concept.
I was like, that kind of would ruin the vibe. So I'm glad it's minimal interruption.
Yeah, I was wondering like how many people are going to actually take them up on this. Like,
Yes.
and I'm sure people will. I would maybe feel a little silly being like, let me submit my expense report to Stellar Point. But hey, it's a good deal, so you can't complain.
I think that it's something that employers have also been anticipating. I don't know. Business Insider put out an article a couple weeks ago about like the great World Cup sick off, where like people are gonna call out sick to go watch World Cup games, and so why not just be upfront about it so that we all know where we stand?
I honestly think they should do something similar for Love Island, because you're losing people anyway who are trying to keep up with this damn show that's on like 6 out of 7 nights a week.
It would really improve company morale.
So
what we're saying.
like people need to catch up on their Love Island. Like if you have plans the night before. So yeah, I just feel like this is a real productivity issue.
Stella Artois, we've got your next idea ready for you. Okay, let's move on. Rachel, what is your nominee?
So I'm continuing the theme of non-sports related
We need the representation.
Yes. So I'm nominating Prada for this. And so they recently had this, I don't know what to call it, an installation called Prada Mode in New York City. And this is the 14th or 15th year that they've done this. And it's basically a series of art installations in like iconic New York locations like Katz's Deli, the Hotel Chelsea, and this year it coincided with the Tribeca Film Festival. So they commissioned director Nicholas Van de Greffen, whose name I did not look at how to pronounce before this podcast, and a Japanese game creator named Hideo Kojima to create works of art that were installed in these various locations. And it's like a very immersive, futuristic experience. And what I like about it is that it's weird. Like if you look at the pictures of it, it really looks like it's an alien ship from, like a sort of 50s futuristic vibe. And it's not directly tied to a product. Obviously it's related to Prada, but it's not about a particular collection that they have. It's not specifically tied to Prada stores. And it's really just a way for them to get in front of people and to drum up interest in the brand, which I thought was a really great idea for a luxury company.
Yeah, I looked at the pictures of this. It's so cool.
Yeah.
As someone who has like a very dormant fashion interest, this is exactly what I would expect someone like Prada, to do. It's cool. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's they don't need to be promoting every individual product they have. They just need to continue to bring that brand awareness and keep that, cool factor as a fashion brand. So I was really into it. I did have kind of a similar question, as I did with, Emmy's first pick is like, obviously this is based in New York. New York's a fashion capital. Yeah. Is it too regional? Is there a benefit to people outside of New York gaining awareness of the brand? What do you think?
This was in two parts. The first part was basically an exclusive event where they had a lot of influencers come in. There were write-ups in the New York Times. So this is the kind of event that gets you free press, basically, and a lot of social media content, and that kind of spreads. But also, it's a strategy of all these companies to have these specific installations in various cities. So I feel like you can get excited about, if you're in LA, what's kind of come to LA. And I think it just speaks to consumers' desire for this sort of experiential experience, regardless of whether it's tied to making an actual purchase or not.
Absolutely. Okay, now for our second award, our winner is... I'm going to go with Stella Artois, Work from Bar. If you know anything about me, I love myself a bar. I'm not shy about it. And I just thought this was a really clever way to cash in on the World Cup games without being even, obviously it's very direct, but it's also, it's anyone could go and do it. So
I like
really
that it's cheeky. I think for me, the best campaigns are the ones that have just a little bit of a,
self-awareness.
A wink. Yeah.
And I feel like people like brands, even if they're not watching the World Cup, that allow them to slack off. At least I'm
Don't
just saying
say that out loud.
myself.
She's
but
right, though.
just promoting work-life balance. I don't know.
Yes,
It's
there we go.
relatable.
Yeah.
It's relatable.
Yeah. No narcs around here.
Oh, okay. All right. Moving on to award number 3, the greatest under the radar move. This is the smart play that didn't necessarily make headlines, but quietly moved the business forward. And the nominations are, Pao, you go first.
Okay, so mine is Dove's r/eel reviews. So it was a Reddit campaign. So Dove found an existing Reddit conversation about its product, and then it invited consumers to test it and promised to publish reviews regardless of the sentiment. And then it turned those reviews into social content, so out of home, and then broader campaign creative efforts. And it was clever because Dove gave up some of the control, right, and leaned into the authenticity. And we just had an article posted today on our website about how 58% of Redditors agree that seeing brands respond directly to customers in Reddit threads increases trust in the brand. Per Qualtrics. It's a way of building trust and instead of creating another polished brand image, right? And so in an AI and social search world, credibility can be a stronger asset than just creativity alone.
Even in, like you said, in the world of, AI and LLMs, trust is big, but also being on these platforms just period is big. A lot of LLMs are picking up Reddit, comments and stuff. So it's really important for brands to be on these platforms, but in an authentic way. That's kind of the caveat there.
Right. I think there's a lot of nervousness around Reddit gaining more traction because they're worried that people are going to start astroturfing like conversations, right? At least in my experience, I think that the communities that are super dedicated to the products or the brands that they're like around are very good at policing those conversations. So
But
it's still very
I
stressful.
wonder if it does change how people interact on those platforms, though. If you know that there's a chance that it could be pulled for an ad campaign, like, do you change the way that you talk about the brand?
Yeah. Do you know off the top of your head like an example of a Reddit?
So here in one of the images, there's one that's like, it's two side-by-side ones, and one of them is like, I love this product, smells amazing, seeing real improvement, and then it's next to one that says, I hate the smell. It's like an old lady wearing too much is an intense perfume smell. And they're just there. And the tagline for the campaign, or the tagline on the ad is their reviews, that's our campaign, no edits.
Wow.
Again,
So
it
they
really
really
does.
just added a review that was like super negative.
Yeah, they're like, make your decision for yourself, essentially. We trust
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, which I think, again,
That's
it
cool.
really leans into Dove's whole ethos, which is really interesting. Okay, moving on. Rachel, what is your under the radar move?
All right, so this is where I get into sports slightly. But it's not World Cup or Knicks related. So this is Dick's Sporting Goods with a new private label pop-up in the Hamptons. I thought this was interesting for a few reasons. One is that the store is purely dedicated to Dick's private labels, and it's doing 3 different iterations. The first one is golf themed, the second one is like swimwear or resort themed, and the last one is back to school related. But also I think the choice of setting the Hamptons for, a concept that you would think is geared more towards, say, price conscious consumers with the idea of private labels. So I just like the idea that Dick's is experimenting with these types of stores. Clearly, there's an understanding that consumers of all income levels are a little bit, wary of what they're buying. And it's just a great showcase for these brands.
Yeah, I thought this was really cool. I mean, private label has certainly grown beyond, just being for value conscious
Absolutely.
consumers. We know that consumers of all income levels across all demographics are buying private label and more, than they ever used to. And the Hamptons is such a cultural thing, right? We're going to the Hamptons, and I think just having that there is it brings this kind of level of fun and coolness in summer. And I love that they're going to do a back to school thing as well. So I think it's just really well timed with the season.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people associate Dick's with, you go there for your little league purchases, or you need a baseball bat, or I don't know if that's just me, but it just feels very juvenile in a way, or it's for youth sports. And I think there isn't as much that reputation built up of we actually have private brands. So it's interesting too that that's what they're leading with.
Yep.
Yeah, and that it's golf and swimwear. And then the back to school golf and swimwear, I think, are 2 things that I wouldn't necessarily associate with Dick's Sporting Goods. I think I would, it's a little more outside the box. So it's really smart of them to kind of think, basketball and soccer are very easily accessible this summer, but
golf and swimwear is what I would associate with the Hamptons immediately.
100%, exactly.
Totally.
They picked really well. Okay, and Emmy, what's your choice?
My choice is that Google just added a universal cart feature. So basically you can shop across different retailers and everything comes together on this universal cart page. And part of it is using their AI assistants to kind of offer recommendations and feedback based on what you put on your cart. So an example would be you're buying a printer and you got a cartridge that isn't actually compatible with it. It might say hey, you might want to rethink this one. Maybe not in those words. But I don't know. I just thought it was interesting because it's very clearly using a lot of consumer data and following consumers across their different retail experiences, but in a way that kind of feels justifiable because it's this is a very specific thing that we're giving you in return that is hopefully or in theory going to make your life easier. And people love having one page and one experience for checkout. So I just thought it was smart.
I think it feels more like a solution than a hindrance, right?
Yeah,
It's more of if you're going to use my data, at least use it for something that helps me.
Right. And I think that's one of the problems with agentic commerce so far, which is that you can buy one thing at a time, but in reality, who does that? Right?
Yeah.
But if you can have, products from Nike next to products from Wayfair and have that all in one cart, I think that would be great. My only thing about this is that it's been promised, but we don't know exactly what it's going to look like in practice.
Oh yeah, we should never trust them. So I was hesitant to even say this. It sounds great, in their press release.
Yeah. So, and this is technically not a retailer, and I do recognize that maybe we're breaking the rules a little bit, but I allowed it. It's okay. I'm guest hosting. I'm allowed to break the rules if I want to. But I think that there's obvious repercussions for brands and retailers, so it's very easy, line to make towards it. And yeah, I agree. In the ideal form, it sounds like it would be incredibly helpful, but as always, you never really know how it's going to pan out. So I'm excited to see, what happens and how it works. Okay, so now I have to pick the third winner. And the third winner is Dick's Sporting Goods Private Label Hamptons Pop-Up.
Wait, we all won.
Yeah. That wasn't on purpose at all.
This is what happens when you have women leading.
Yeah.
There's
equity, quality. No, but to be serious, I do really like this campaign.
She's like, that wasn't for me.
I think it's very smart. I think it's fun, and I think private label. Rachel, you've written about it a lot. I know we've written about it a lot. It just continues to be something people are buying more and more, and I think it's leveling up to become in a league much along with national brands. So I think this is exactly where that makes sense. Okay, so to go over our winners, we have most impactful campaign is going to Nike's post-Knicks win campaign. Best in real life initiative is Stella Artois' Work from Bar campaign. And our greatest under the radar move is Dick's Sporting Goods private label Hamptons pop-up. Congratulations to all of you.
Thank you so much. I am Josh Safdie.
That is all the time we have for today. Thank you, Emmy. And
Thank
this
you.
is sadly
this is such
Emmy's
an honor.
last.
This is my last time on the
pod.
podcast.
We all wish Emmy
I will be leaving.
the best. And
Yes, it just sounds so dramatic.
I know.
there's no way
But
to
I like
say
to
it,
make
a
things
casual-
dramatic,
Yeah,
you know?
but I love the drama. I love the drama and I love the attention. So.
And thank you, Pal.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and thank you, Rachel.
Thanks for this very fun edition of the UMRAs.
This is what happens when Susie's away. We will play. And thank you to the team who edits the podcast and, of course, our listeners. Please leave a rating or review and remember to subscribe. Susie will see you next Wednesday for more Reimagined Retail, and we'll be back with the next edition of the UMRAs at the end of July. And on Friday, you can join Marcus for another episode of Behind the Numbers.